Everyone, we'll be starting in a moment. Okay, delete that. Delete these. Sounds being picked up. Connection seems to be okay. Everything seems to be good. So, we can begin. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another stream. And the first for this week. Hope everyone's been doing well. Ow. Today, we are continuing the Great Ace Attorney. We had previously started the first part of the 5th episode, which is still the 4th case, of trying to defend against the Reaper. And Kazuma was like, no, he's evil. How dare you? We were like, but Kazuma, he's not. I know I'm angry, but he's right. He's evil. And we reached an impasse. And we are now, I think at the end of the last stream, we had just finished the first trial. I think they're trying to find someone or get someone. So they're having like a 30-minute recess or something. During that time, we had found out that by pulling the ears of the rabbit toy thing that Iris gave us, was able to somehow get into contact with Sherlock Sholmes. And he was like, stop pulling on my ear, because apparently the toy is actually alive, and if you pull that, it pulls his ear, so interesting. But we were able to contact him, and he's saying that he's currently on the boat that the victim was on, that he might have been killed on. So, we are now currently playing as Sholmes and his assistant, Mikotoba, who also might go by Watson, or Wilson. We had to stop last time because it was going over time, but today we shall be seeing if we can finish it. So without further ado, let us begin and get right into it. There you are, game. Hey, Rapatron, hey, Balaroth. Rapatron, the only series that can make interrogating a guy called Chicken badass. Alright, let me see it's all good. Okay, showing up on there. Sound is being picked up. Need to refresh restream as usual. Yes. Good. Alright, we're good to go. Press the any key. We can't press continue because we did the last escapade, so we need to load. Yeah, escapade episode 8. Final. Investigation part 1. The Grouse, or Grouse as it was, yes. I remember now. That was the name of it. I was like, it's not the Buria. The Buria was the first ship. What was the second ship? It was the Grouse. Alright. Let me just do a stretch so I'm ready. Alright, let's do this. Mikotoba. Whilst I know how much you enjoy being the hero of the hour, Sholmes, we have but half that now before the Grouse puts to sea again. If we don't conclude our investigations rapidly, we'll find ourselves in Naples before long. There are times, Mikotoba, when you make a surprising amount of sense. So, let us begin. Exactly the same guy, but with a tuft of hair and a thing on his arm. First class cabin number 2. So this is the one. But I don't believe an investigation of the cabin is going to be plain sailing. That crewman standing in front of the door is an angry-looking fellow. Is he still Russian? I think he's just a normal guy. or your lawyer around here. Who are you? My dear fellow, do you not recognize a world-famous great detective when you see one? The question really ought to be, who are you? Do you not recognize world-traveling great sailor? He's still Russian, okay. How do you say this? Chicken stroganoff. When you see? Great detective, huh? I don't think so. Yes, that's his brother. Oh, okay. Chomes and Mikotoba are long-distance husbands. Okay. Do you see that, Mikotoba? It would appear that this man is a devoted follower of mine. Oh, goodness me. Is that a tattoo that says Chomes? I must say, whilst such adjuration is flattering, naturally it leaves me a little cold. What are you talking about? Leave! Leave now! How distressing! My loyal devotee knows me only by my name and not by my appearance. And yet I already know a great deal about you, sir. You have a brother, I believe. Like yourself, he's a shipman. Currently traveling the world aboard a Russian steamship, in fact. How could you know this? Elementary, my dear Mikotoba. He like instantly came that together. There was no fluff. There was no like messing about. He just went straight to the point. Jesus. What happened? As soon as he gets Mikotoba, he activates his full power or something, I guess. I'm sure it was. 3 days ago, I was bound for London aboard this ship, you see. We're looking for one of my fellow passengers, a man by the name of Jigoku. There is no one by that name on board. But we know that he purchased a ticket for passage. Ah, you mean Eastern man? He left ship 2 hours ago. Here at Dunkirk, he said something about emergency, I think. What? Are you sure? So Seisha has realized that we're after him, has he? His cabin is the one behind you. We should like to investigate, please. No, I have heard orders not to let even mouse inside. Mikotoba, be a good man and draw this sailor's attention away, would you? Make up some excuse so that he leaves the area. Doesn't great detective see that even sailors have ears, both left and right? Curses! The plan is ruined! And you have only yourself to blame, I'm afraid, Chomes. Oh, forget it. Cabin is locked. Even if I'm not here, you cannot go inside. I am butchering this Russian accent more than usual. Mikotoba, I'm sure you haven't forgotten my special talent, have you? Opening any lock. Within a mere 5 seconds. So if you'd be so kind as to afford me the requisite time, old friend, in your typically intimidating manner. How could I refuse such a typically unappealing request, old friend? So I need to distract that burly sailor for 5 seconds, do I? My good man, so the game is afoot! He can run, but he can't hide. That's another first-class cabin, and yet its door is completely unguarded. Empty as well. I had a quick look inside earlier. Though I confess I didn't investigate the wardrobe. There may very well be a young Japanese fellow inside, perspiring merrily. If you're returning to Naruhodo, you knew very well that he's currently perspiring merrily in court. Does it not strike you, though, Mikotoba? Why the man stands guard only in front of this cabin, when both are apparently vacant? This would appear to be an alarm bell. All hell would break loose if that thing were to ring. The whole crew would know about it. Ooh, give me a second. Let me look at some of the stuff first. No, I think not. That would never work, surely. And he concoct another distraction. This must be a mousetrap, I think. Or perhaps I could distract the crewsman's attention with this somehow. Choo-choo. That sounds like Big Mouse in Trap. Choo-choo. I will bring bucket of water, lady. I'll bring it. Put it out of misery. God, I'm ruining this Russian accent. I did a good one before. I don't like the sound of that. In any case, my dear fellow, that was quite unconvincing. Only Japanese mice make a chew sound. Oh, really, Sholmes? And pray tell, what sound do Russian mice make? A pee-pee, naturally, though also quite unconvincing, I must readily admit. So go ahead, Migotoba, do a pee-pee this time. No, thank you. I'm sure I can come up with an alternative solution. We'll undo his belt and run. Ah, the switch for the electrical lights. Perhaps if I were to turn off the lights, the crewmen wouldn't be able to see what we were doing. What is happening? Where is light? Now, Sholmes, now! Nobody there. That was a close shave. Quite a knack you have, stumbling so violently in an apparently empty corridor. Oh, do be quiet, Sholmes. I shall have to think of another approach. Oh, whoops. Well, that's a speaking tube for members of the crew to communicate with one another around the ship. If I could just persuade our stocky sailor friend that he needed to use it, Sholmes could unlock the door whilst he was distracted. The question is, how? With a gun. That's the way back to the deck, but we certainly can't give up on this now. Alright, time to pull the switch. Here goes then. Pardon me in advance. Oh yo, what are you doing? If we were at sea, that would be a very bad problem. What's going on down there, Stroganoff? Seaman Stroganoff, report at once. Sorry, sir, nothing to report. It was just stupid trick. Not by me, no. By one famous... No, as I told you. Now, Sholmes, now. Done. And not even 5 seconds, eh? Well, don't stand there gawping at my brilliance, Migotoba, in we go! Oh, yes. I'm obsessed with a new type of spider. Really? Knocked over sign. Someone stole something from the wall. 3rd of November. SS Grouse First Class Cabin number 2. Water. Who stuffed that in there? Good gracious. It would appear that the occupant of this cabin did indeed disembark rather hurriedly. Those clothes on the floor there, they're Satoru's, without a question. Well, it seems we are just a little too late. Yes, by about 2 hours. How the hell did you figure that out? Velvet spiders. They are round and tiny. Oh, okay. Still, whilst we're here, we should investigate thoroughly. There may well be 2 hours' worth of clues to find in here. Well, that burly crewman may return at any moment, Sholmes. Indeed he may, which makes this all the more thrilling. Alright. Always gotta check the cupboard. According to the report I was given, Naruhodo was concealing himself in Asogi's wardrobe. Indeed he was, and it was of a similar size to this one. Ah, you must climb inside yourself, my dear fellow. Oh, what? Whatever for? It was the site of my first fateful meeting with Mr. Naruhodo. You can experience the moment for yourself now, complete with my dramatic rhetoric. Come along now, in you go. This will only take a moment. Really, Sholmes, surely you can tell me what you said. You could just tell me. Well, I uttered some brilliant remark and opened the wardrobe to reveal the stowaway murderer. I'll just read about it in the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. Quite the exquisite glass, I must say. See how it... Is something wrong, Sholmes? You suddenly trailed off. Ice, Mikotoba, ice! What opulence the first-class passengers enjoy! Chilled drinks! Pardon? Could it be that this steamship is equipped with an electrical refrigerator cold room, do you think? Well, it's a luxury liner after all. They have enormous refrigerators for storing all sorts of lavish produce as well as ice. On our voyage from Japan, we enjoyed culinary delights from all over the world. Certainly, Mikotoba. The sight of you is making my mouth water. Don't eat him! I haven't taken off on the flavor of the food I ate, you know. This is the waste paper basket. Look, there's still rubbish inside. Indeed? Then let us pry. I've discovered recently I have a penchant for exploring the contents of whoever's or others' waste paper baskets. I sincerely hope only for your work. Ah. Here we have a notice issued to passengers from 3 days ago. Why is my thing not catching up? 3 days ago, the night before we arrived in London then, when I was still aboard myself. Evacuation notice the 31st of October. Following departure... I didn't finish reading that! Ah, yes, there was an evacuation drill, I remember now. For our safety and security, all first-class passengers were constantly under the watchful eye of the crew. So it was a welcome relief to have some privacy for once. The evacuation drill itinerary has been entered into the court record. Let's give it a little looky-loo. After we finish looking, I guess. There's a speaking tube here, look, though it's been stopped with some cloth. So the voices of the crewmen on the bridge aren't an annoyance, I suppose. Or indeed, so that the voices in this cabin aren't heard elsewhere. Could something have happened in here that was for no one else's ears, do you think? Either that, or it could be to prevent snakes from entering. That's really become a favorite case of yours, hasn't it? These are the rules of passage. Passengers must not keep weapons or other dangerous objects in their cabins. Pets are also strictly forbidden. Additionally, there are severe punishments for stowing away in wardrobes and/or travel cases. I feel the rules have slipped since I last read them, or have increased. Probably just my imagination. What about the fact that they're not straight on the wall? Doesn't that strike you? You may be right. Probably just your imagination. No, a trifle. And you know what I always say, Mikotoba? There is nothing important about trifles. I mean, trifles can be nice. Very delicious sometimes. When done correctly. This is probably just my imagination, but I think that might be slightly off. That's a very sizable trunk indeed. Oh wait, did the wrong voice, but whatever. Seishiro is impartial to all things large. And rather clumsy fellow if he failed to notice he'd left that behind. Perhaps he left it on purpose. It's lighter than you'd think, but still a hindrance to a speedy escape. Pity. It's locked, so we can't look inside. Surely 5 seconds from now the situation will be quite different, though. Sadly not. It's a 7-digit combination lock. No, there's trifles. Truffles are like the mushroom things. They're disgusting. Or you might be thinking of chocolate truffles, which are different, which are delicious. I'm talking about trifles. You know, like a strawberry trifle. You tried to draw a Soryu art at 2 a.m. and I couldn't figure out how to draw them kissing, so I just draw Ash Babe in the corner. Why is my chat cut off at the side? Let me just move that over a bit. There we go. Doo-doo. Plenty of reading material to keep passengers occupied on the long sea voyage. I found the mixture of classic literature and easy reading to be most satisfactory, and I must say, whoever stocked this bookcase was a holeless heretic, or heretic. And there's no copy of the Adventures of Sherlock Sholmes, my dear fellows. I'm afraid it's just me, but no, you're quite right. More blasphemous than overlooking the Bible. Excuse me. You're just yapping and not contributing to the game experience at all? No! Balaroth, you're contributing by being here, and I appreciate that. That was a lot more sincere than I was trying to make it be, but yeah. You're a welcome addition to the chat. I shall leave a copy behind. I just happen to have one with me. He just has like a collection of all of his books that he just slips into people's homes. Why is the chat being weird? Fine, we'll do it like that. There you go. Right, what did he say? A true missionary of the Church of the Great Detectives, aren't you? Right, I need to alt-tab so I can get this to work again properly. Right. The wall is slightly different color just here, do you see? Indeed. So what have you observed arises when a frame that has been hanging for some time is removed. Perhaps your friend is an art thief. Well, there's a bold deduction worthy of a great detective, I'm sure. This one doesn't have a deadbolt, I just noticed. He may very well be the elusive thief who's been plaguing France's galleries of late. I think perhaps we should focus our attentions elsewhere, Sholmes, don't you? That outline on the wall. I feel as though I might have spotted something of a similar shape and size elsewhere. Here. Oh, it's you. Hello. You are still here? Ah, Abel Seaman Stroganoff. Hello again. I was beginning to think you'd never materialize. You are waiting for me? Of course, I was expecting you to burst in with a hearty Russian profanity far sooner. I was in trouble with Captain because of a trick you played before. I'm losing the Russian. Poor innocent chicken. It's all your fault. Ship is leaving port soon. Get off now. Of course, we shall disembark presently, my dear fellow. But first, there is something that must be done. What are you talking about, Willis? Why, naturally, the debunking of your deceit and bearing of the truth. Kakoi? I'm afraid I see through your lies. For one thing, Mr. Jigoku has not yet left this vessel at all. And for another, my dear Seaman Stroganoff, you know exactly where the man is, even as we speak, don't you? How can you... Good gracious, Sholmes, you mean you've worked it out? All of it? It's really been too long, hasn't it, old friend? 10 years, no less. So, would you care to join me for a dance of my inimitable logic and reasoning? Nothing would please me more. What is this? We have but minutes until the vessel puts to sea. No games now. Time is of the essence. Ooh, it's gone straight into it. Mr. Stroganoff, allow me to remind you of your earlier claim. You told us that Jigoku left the ship some 2 hours ago. Duh, that is what I said. Sadly, there was a rather clumsy lie. You see, there is something in this room that quite clearly contradicts it. What? Ah, yes, of course. I see you've noted it too, Mikotoba. Then please do take the lead. What in this cabin shows the impossibility of Jugoku having disembarked 2 hours ago? Ooh! Artwork! Cool! Like, they have, like, full sprites for this thing. That's cool. Let's see what the last 3 years have done to your observational skills then, Mikotoba. It's been 10 years since we last did this, Sholmes, not 3. Oh, why, of course it has. Quite. Now, all the clues are here in this cabin for your eyes to see. But I always say, you must not merely look, but observe. Observe and the answers become clear. So, impress me. I think I can manage that. Shows the impossibility of Jugoku having disembarked 2 hours ago. Probably the ice, because otherwise the ice would have melted by now.
Take that!
What? He's actually dancing. Perhaps you should have cleared away that glass. How curious that the ice shouldn't have melted despite it being abandoned 2 hours ago. It would appear that the man was here in this very cabin until moments before our arrival. I'm liking this song. With this well-chilled glass in hand. Get your mind off the refreshments, Sholmes. One might even conclude that somebody informed him of our boarding. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Stroganoff? But why would Seishiro run from us? Before we consider that question, allow me to confirm one small matter. Would it be correct in saying that these first-class cabins of the SS Grouse are the same ones in which you and Mr. Jugoku were accommodated on your voyage from Japan? That's right, they are. I was in the cabin next door and Seishiro was, yes, 50 days in this very cabin during our voyage. As I suspected, for you see, there are traces in this cabin of a dark secret that Mr. Jugoku had to hide. What traces? I know nothing about this. It actually feels like I'm playing like a Sherlock Holmes game or something. Because I think it's just the way that he's dressed fills it in so well. Ah, this is news for you, is it, Mr. Stroganoff? Sholmes, what are you actually getting at? As I said, there are traces in this cabin of some nefarious activity. Something that appears out of place, which I'm quite sure won't have escaped your notice. Something out of place is here. That's the key to this, Mikotoba. The remnants of a dark deed that took place in here are being masked by something quite incongruous. I must say I didn't foresee ever about doing this dance of deduction with you again, Mikotoba. No, quite. But a life is full of unexpected twists and turns, as we well know. Now then, let us see if I can't uncover the truth here. Yes, you have the floor, my dear fellow.
Take that!
Yeah! The fact that he has tap-dancing shoes is the rules of passage in this frame here. They're obviously out of place. The way they're hanging crooked on the wall. As if they were put there in a hurry. Yes, as I'm sure you already concluded, that frame was originally over there. The shape and size are a perfect match. Yeah, you're right. When did frame move? Hardly the most observant of crewmen, are you, Mr. Stroganoff? I would think your captain is quite justified in having his reservations about your reliability. Oh, God. Oh dear, that really seemed to have touched a nerve. So, Mikotoba, why don't you lift that frame off the wall? Bloodstain? Bullet hole. How's my second guess? That looks like a bullet hole. Oh, what? Who has been shooting walls? I see the projectile had been removed. Clearly the careful occupant of this room has already disposed of it. Now then, Mr. Stroganoff. I have the distinct impression you're attempting to shield said occupant. I do not know what you're talking about. Why would I try to protect Eastern Stranger? Ah, so we're talking about the same man, I see. Good. I'm sure we can get to the bottom of this in no time, aren't you? Because there's some very noteworthy evidence that explains the reason why you're lying for the man. Yes, you've been told to keep up his pretense as clearly shown by... I really don't know how to approach this one, Sholmes. Ah, my dear Mikotoba, simply keep first principles in mind. Study your subject from every angle. And I'm quite sure you'll see, in fact, I'd put a wager on it. So I'm to glare at the fellow from all sides. Well, I can certainly do that. You just start staring at him, he's like, what? Ooh. What are banknotes? He obviously has this. It's either going to be the tattoo or it's going to be the water money, because that's... If he's been paid, then that would be why he's doing it.
Take that!
Yeah! It's almost too obvious for words. Quite the universal language of the world. Money. And I'd wager that the Eastern fellow in question is Seishiro Jigoku, yes? So I presume you realize what this means. There are clear signs that a crime has been committed in this cabin. And the way you're going, sir, you'll find yourself accused of being an accomplice. But... I believe you know, Mr. Stroganoff. You know where Mr. Jigoku is hiding at this precise moment in time. As always, Mikotoba, in matters of deduction, the fervid glance is your unfaltering ally. Yes, I think you're onto something there, Sholmes. You found a chink in this burly fellow's armor. We need only follow the man's gaze to know where our prey is hiding. The slightest flicker of the pupils, a minute delayed blink. Nothing escapes my attention, even that which is barely perceptible. You could hardly call this barely perceptible, Sholmes. The man turned his entire head. It's not exactly what you describe as a furtive glance, is it? It's almost too obvious. We shall let your tapping toes decide, my dear fellow. I mean, obviously it's in the trunk, because why would all the stuff be out of it?
Take that!
You turned immediately to look at this large trunk, didn't you? The truth is, Seishiro Jigoku was unable to escape from the ship in time. And is, at this very moment, doing his best to stifle his breath inside this trunk. Oh, stifle his laughing, I was about to say. If he still has breath to take, I fear he may be running dangerously low on air. Imagine he didn't count on us making a nuisance of ourselves for quite so long. I think it would be everyone's best interest for us to open the trunk as quickly as possible. But how can we? Are you forgetting about the combination lock? We don't know the 7-digit code. The combination lock can't be opened from the inside the trunk. Therefore, there must have been an arrangement for somebody to open it up after our departure. Of course. In short, before Jigoku hid himself inside that trunk, he must have told somebody the 7-digit number for the lock. And as I'm sure you can confirm, Mr. Stroganoff... No, I know nothing about combination lock. Ooh, slow-mo. Don't lose your muscle, my good seaman. Huh? Jigoku hears the aggressive tap dancing and he knows he's screwed. I was like, wait a minute, I recognize that shoe sound. Sholmes. Mikotoba. Now, Mikotoba, would you do the honors and open the trunk? How on earth do you expect me? It's a 7-digit number, remember? So quickly now, we have little time. And it's either going to be a 5 or it's going to be a 2. Whoops. What would... Would that be a 0? This would be a 0, obviously. Am I like looking at it the wrong way? Because this obviously has to be a 3, but what would the E be? I think this is correct.
Take that!
Nope. No, it's refusing to open. Tell me, what number did you use? Well, to begin with, I thought I'd try my birthday. Your birthday? Interesting, since as of today, with that absurd guesswork, you're dead to me. Oh, wow. As measured as ever, responsive Sholmes. If you would only look in the right place, Mikotoba, the answer would be staring you in the face. The right place. But if you're having a spot of bother, I always find standing on my head aids the cognitive process. Because if it's written upside down, it would mean that it would actually be going this way, so I might be doing it the wrong way around. So it would actually be 5, whatever, 3, 1, 0, 4, 5. Five, 3. Oh, wait, no, I did it wrong one. This one's 4. This one is O. Am I doing it right? I'm like confusing myself because I have to do it backwards. I think E is a 2? Maybe? So 5, 4, 0, 1, 3, 3, 2, 5.
Take that!
Done it! Yeah! I just had it the wrong way around, that was all. That did it, it opened. You had to meddle, didn't you? I had to remember what I did for the voice. He's so cramped in there. Well, Eugen, you found me now. Seishiro. I was really hoping beyond not to find you. I was really hoping beyond hope not to find you here, you know. But you're not entirely unsurprised, I take it. No, quite. I just wish it were some other way. Well, are you ever going to introduce me? Your reputation precedes you, Mr. Sholmes. I've read stories of your many exploits. Excuse my manner, Sholmes. This is Mr. Jugoku, my old trap friend and traveling companion. The devil is in the details, Mikotober. I believe you meant to say your old friend and traveling companion, who made the cowardly decision to flee the country without a word to anyone when things turned sour. I see my reputation precedes me as well. What an honor. Well, Seishiro, are you going to explain all this? You know it all by now, I imagine. What you didn't know, of course, is that these 3 days ago, on the night before our arrival in Britain, an attempt was made on my life here in this very ship. By the Reaper of the Bailey. Yes, I since heard. Loki would like to treat him like I treat Koroks and Tales of the Kingdom, or whatever. Because you were once prosecuted by the Reaper, weren't you? 10 years ago now, mind you. And I had no idea at the time what a dangerous individual he was. Anyway, when we arrived in London to find the symposium was postponed until goodness knows when, it became all too apparent to me that I might very well be the target again. So you decided to flee the capital without saying a word to me about it? I'm afraid so, yes. Of course, I realize now that I really ought to have confided in you. It's somewhat surprising, I must say. What is? Well, first-class cabins aboard luxury steamships are in very short supply. It's more than a little hard to believe that this is one just happened to be available. So says the protagonist of some colorful short stories. Well, I don't care for your opinion. We're all happy and nice to one another a moment before, and now you're just like, oh, no, you're just a person from a colorful novel. So the cabin just did happen to be available, so I purchased a ticket, and here I am. I've seen it for myself, the obvious remnants of that incident in this cabin. So you'd already purchased your return ticket before we even docked in Dover, had you? To prevent anyone else making the cabin, or taking this cabin and seeing the evidence, is that it? Eugen, I have nothing to say to you. It's either saying it more as I have nothing to say to you, or as in, I have nothing to say to you. As in, like he wants to, but he can't. Well, in a mere 5 minutes, this ship will set off on its onwards voyage and not make port again until Italy. I'm afraid we must insist that you disembark with us at once. You have no jurisdiction over my movements. We have this, Seishiro. Take it. What is it? This is a subpoena from the Old Bailey. You're a man of the law. You know what the ramifications of ignoring a document like this from the British courts would be. We suddenly so serious. You came prepared then, Eugen. Prepare to die! Come on, let's go. Oh, one moment. What is it, Sholmes? Inside Mr. Yugoku's trunk. I found this rather fascinating trinket. What is that, Seishiro? I can't help you, I'm afraid. I'm some small component from something. But what? I have no idea. It's the hilt of the sword or something. By the look on his face, I think he genuinely doesn't know. Well, let us pocket it in a small souvenir for our brief sojourn in France. Small component has been entered into the court record. Well, young Naruhodo, I think we've done as much as we can, I'm afraid. I can't look at my list. The court record, that was it. I forgot the name of the freaking inventory then. The rest will be on the shoulders of you and your assistant, my daughter. Third of November, 12:10 p.m. The Old Bailey courtroom. We're back. That was a very short part. I thought that'd be a bit longer, but I'll take it. Now I can. Following departure from the port of Dunkirk, all crew members are required to assemble on the main deck at 10 p.m. in order to review evacuation procedures. The drill will take 20 minutes. Crew to resume duties as soon as drill is over. You see these little things all over the place, don't you? It's the part on the top of a pocket watch when you twist it to set the time, isn't it? Oh! It's called the crown, I believe. A watch would be quite useless without one. The crown? Like what sits on top of a monarch's head? It's a very grand name for such a tiny part. But actually... Yes, Mr. Naruhodo? If this is a crown, I have a feeling I might see a monarch around here somewhere with a very bare head. If by monarch you mean pocket watch, then I'm quite sure you have. Well, that was easy to figure out what that was. Kazuma Sogi. I know you and I know you wouldn't lie, but still, there's no doubt that you're holding something back. You know more than you're saying. During the past 30 minutes while this court was adjourned, all possible efforts were expended. But sadly, Mr. Jigoku's whereabouts could not be ascertained. We must accept the unfortunate conclusion that the Reaper has already done the deed. There's no sense in wasting any more of the court's time. The prosecution calls for an immediate verdict.
Objection!
No, the trial cannot end now. You're a Japanese man, Ryunosuke. You should know when to lay down your sword. And you should know never to presume when the battle is won. The court has already been presented with all the evidence and heard all relevant testimony. And there can be only one conclusion, that the accused is guilty. All relevant testimony? Far from it. There's still a crucial witness from whom the court is yet to hear a single word of testimony. In that case, call your witness to the stand at once, counsel. Yes, my lord. Tomorrow, if possible. The witness is already on his way. He's scheduled to arrive tomorrow. Who on earth is this crucial witness? Seishiro Jigoku. The very man allegedly murdered by the Reaper. Judge Jigoku? You found him? But the investigations of every policing resource in the capital suggest that Jigoku is already dead. That's because they didn't find him. How in the name of God did you find the man? He was located in France during the recess at the port of Dunkirk. Thanks to one Herlock Sholmes' famous deductions. Herlock Sholmes. Inspector Gregson almost certainly met with Jigoku on the night of his death, because along with Prosecutor Asogi, Gregson was on the mission to assassinate the man. Which means that Seishiro Jigoku is the sole witness, and who can clarify exactly what happened aboard the SS Grouse on the 31st of October. Well, it would appear that this is too soon to move to education at this point. The prosecution concurs. The court must hear Mr. Jigoku's testimony. If he lives, I shall kill him before he arrives, so I win. No judgment shall pass until all testimony has been considered. In that case, I hereby call the end of today's proceedings. Court will reconvene at the same hour tomorrow. No objections from either side. No, my lord. No objections, my lord. I object. We live to fight another day. By the skin of our teeth. Objection? Hold it. Okay. To be continued. But we should probably go straight into it because we haven't been not streaming for long. Still, Barrack has to stand so dramatic when he's been accused of murder. It's the only way, you know? He can't be a slouch. Right. Yeah, it's barely been an hour. We've got plenty of time. The unexpected halt of proceedings sent a clamour around the courtroom. But outside the Bailey, where Londoners knew nothing of the secret trial within, it was a typical still night. Then, at a little past 8 o'clock that evening, Mr. Sholmes and his partner returned to Baker Street. Chicken! Pie! 3rd of November, 8:07 p.m. Sholmes' suite. We have returned, my dear fellows. Welcome back to Britain. Thank you for your time and your help. Think nothing of it. I believe you had even more wearing on day than Weektober, and I know. You could say that. We were on the brink of defeat in court earlier. So this prosecutor Asogi had you on the ropes, did he? And he's your best friend, you say? Well, he's not really the man I knew in Japan anymore. Kazuma's changed. Oh, Mr. Naruhodo. I mean, it's incredible. To think that he'd even entertain the idea of acting as the Reaper's assassin. Well, nevertheless, you must introduce me. After all, I've only ever met the young man as a corpse. That's true. When all this started almost a year ago now. When he was still baby, Mr. Sholmes still hadn't told us the truth about what really happened back then. About the motivation for what he himself described as a great detective's lie. Now then, I must say, it's really quite a journey all the way to France. Well, it is another country, Mr. Sholmes. So, what news of Jochigoku? We took him to Scotland Yard. The investigating detectives there have a lot of questions up for the man. Poor Professor Mikotoba. This must be quite a shock for him. Ah, yes. I picked up this little telegraph on the office. I picked this up at the telegraph office on the way home. What is it? Surely you haven't forgotten already. I put upon you the matter for only yesterday. You put upon me, Sholmes. I've had to fill out your telegram to Japan and foot the bill as well. Oh, you've had a reply already? The dynamic raw. What's so urgent, Mr. Sholmes, though? Such matters can wait until later. I'm far too hungry for an involved conversation at present. Well, that's good news, because supper is ready, everyone. And what a feast it is! If I were none the wiser, I'd think the trial were won already. Roast beef, kippers, stew, steak and kidney pie, Yorkshire puddings. Roast beef. I don't see roast beef. I see chicken. I don't see a stew. And I don't see steak. Nor any Yorkshire puddings, which would have been great to see. Tomorrow could be a very long day, so eat up. In that case, I shall seat myself right just here. This place appears to be the only one set with a helping of pheasant as well. Oh, sorry, Hurley, not there. Why ever not? Are we set in places this evening? Yes, and that place is for Susie's daddy. For me? That's right, I meant especially for you, Professor Mickey. Mickey. I see. Well, that's terribly kind of you. It's a shame, really. What do you mean? Well, for a brief moment, I believed it. That Susie and I were half-sisters, I mean. Oh. Iris, do you mean... yes, I know now. I overheard it yesterday. I secretly listened into the conversation you had. After I tricked you all thinking I'd left. What? How is he surprised by that? You pretty much raised her, so you kind of know what she's like. misunderstanding arose because of that autopsy report from 10 years ago. But actually, it turned out that neither Dr. Wilson nor Professor Mikotoba are Iris's father. Yes, about that, Iris. You know, I know, you can't tell me at the moment. Oh, Iris. The visit is by way of an apology. I'm sorry for eavesdropping. Oh, no, that's quite all right. Then why don't I get an apologetic pheasant? So just who is Iris's father? Turns out it's Asogi all along. She's actually the daughter of the professor. I suppose that's not something we'll be finding out today. In the next game, maybe. So then, let us dine, while our largely pheasantless plates are still piping hot. A fine idea, Sholmes. It all looks absolutely delicious. Eat as much as you like, there's always seconds. This could be our last chance to ask questions before tomorrow's trial. About that telegram from Japan. And about Kazuma. I can't let this opportunity slip away, he says while eating chicken. What's his pose? Why is he sitting like that? It's like, yes, you've come to ask me a question. Alright, quickly check the board. This blackboard is where Iris scribbles down the latest ideas, isn't it? Let's see. Oh, she seems to have drawn a lot of little stick figures all lined up. Look. Cheap apples at the market. Okay, same as last time. Skip. Chicken. Roast beef, kippers, stew, steak and kidney pie, Yorkshire puddings. I gotta repeat the same things over and over again. It all looks mouth-wateringly good. Indeed it does. And if it were accompanied by an even a morsel of pheasant, it would be perfection. You're still on that? No one eats pheasants in the modern day. Doesn't mean that no. People do, but they're not, usual. You're still on that? Oh, it really does look like a feast for celebrating a victory in court. Or indeed for drowning one's sorrows after defeat. I hope you weren't referring to the trial tomorrow, Mr. Sholmes. He's clearly still in mourning over the pheasant at the present moment. Mr. Sholmes, what are you doing? Surely it's abundantly clear that I wasn't brooding over Mikotoba's refusal to share his pheasant with me. Nevertheless, I felt the need to withdraw from the social circle for a while and look on with hungry eyes. Sorry, Hurley, but I cooked that pheasant especially for Susie's daddy. Even though I've played the role of father to you for far longer. Mr. Sholmes? Could I discuss some things with you? Certainly, my dear fellow. I find myself quite in the mood for a spell of conversation. And no doubt, you're hungry to learn more of my deep love of the game. I can probably contain my curiosity on that one. You needn't look at me in that fashion. In what fashion? It seems that before we discuss the pheasant, we have some rather unpheasant matters to discuss. Yes, we do. Telegram from Japan. So, what was in the telegram you received back from Japan then? Ah, this? I thank my lucky stars it arrived in time. Record founders indicated. Duplicate follows. K. Asogi, A. Shin, T. Gregson, J. Wilson. What? Those 4 names? We've come across that exact same list before. They came up in that unforgettable case last spring. Oh, this guy. What appeared to be a simple case of aggravated murder turned out to be the masking a monumental intrigue. A plot that involved the sale of British governmental secrets to foreign states. In exposing the means by which those secrets were being leaked, we deciphered a fragment of a message. K. Asogi, A. Shin, T. Gregson, J. Wilson. But we didn't find the names out until our case was over, and we never did get to the bottom of what they meant. All we knew was that the information had been sent by somebody in the British government to somebody in Japan. So, why are the names coming up again now? Yes, where did the sender of the telegram discover them, Mr. Sholmes? I have here the message I wired yesterday. Allow me to read it to you. Enter Judge Gogoku's office undetected and investigate telegram records. Expect to find communication from Britain and dated 1 year ago. List of 4 names. Need by tomorrow. Naruhodo. I sent it to a detective I know who specializes in clandestine missions of this nature. You asked Inspector Hosonaga to undertake such an onerous task for you? And in my name? I wonder what guise he opted for this time. My dear fellows, it was a matter of great urgency, you understand? Anyway, a list of names was found in Seishiro's office, as Sholmes predicted. So you mean that mysterious collection of names that was sent from Britain to Japan was... It was sent by Judge Gogoku. He was the intended recipient. I don't believe it. But that doesn't answer the question of what the list of names actually signifies. The people who work with the Reaper? I did formulate a hypothesis about that. But without a shred of evidence, I couldn't possibly have shared it. Mr. Sholmes looks deadly serious for once. We still need to figure out why he's hiding the whole thing about the Hound of the Baskervilles still, other than, you know, the fact that they have to keep the identity of the killer secret. That tragedy we had to go through on the SS Buria. It was all for nothing. Kazuma wasn't dead at all. We were completely taken in by the lie you told us, your great detective's lie. I took no pleasure in deceiving you. However, at the time, all that concerned me was preventing the young man's study tour from taking place, whatever the cost. What? I capitalized on the events that transpired to see that he was sent back to Japan. His remains, you mean? Precisely, Miss Susato. And then, I made sure that somebody was sent to Britain in his stead. Oh my, you mean... The arrangement between our two countries was already in place. One university student lawyer and one judicial assistant to be accommodated on a study tour. In other words, by arranging for someone else to fill the place originally intended for Mr. Asogi, I would successfully prevent the man from arriving on our shores for several years at least. Wait, do you mean to say that it was all in aid of stopping Kazuma coming to Britain? That's why you... Think back, Mr. Naruhodo. Was there not somebody who quite casually urged you to continue on the voyage to England? Oh, it's a flashback. I'm going to use my new trick. Or the trick that I used a while ago and then didn't use again until last stream. The terms of this study tour were negotiated by the Department of Justice in both Great Britain and Japan. In the light of Mr. Asogi's unfortunate death, I'm afraid the study tour can no longer go ahead. My dear fellows, the majority of problems have an extremely simple solution, you know. All you require is one lawyer and the study tour can continue surely. But there's no one else with the necessary qualifications, Mr. Sholmes. We know of no other lawyer. The voyage to London still promises a good month of time. Ample opportunity, I would say, to find yourselves another suitable lawyer. And back off. So you manipulated me. I've often remarked on the extraordinary lengths to which friendship will drive a man. I was quite sure that you would rise to the challenge for your late friend. I don't believe it. But if it was all contrived... I mean, what happened was treated by the authorities as murder. A woman was mistakenly arrested as the perpetrator. What do you suppose came of her? And naturally, I didn't allow the misapprehension to have any serious repercussions. I subsequently explained everything and assisted the unfortunate soul in finding the foreign refuge she so sought. I seem to remember Mrs. Addo and I had some rather strong words for her. Oh well, she was certainly not devoid of all guilt. She deserved every word, I'm sure. I wonder if she made it to America then. Only history will know. I'm afraid I simply cannot comprehend it. Why would you go to such lengths, Mr. Sholmes? Why were you so determined to stop Kazuma-sama from reaching Britain? The truth is, 12 months ago, there was already a very tangible omen of the impending tragedy, you see. Oh. An omen that, at this very moment in time, is close at hand. An omen of all these tragic events that already existed a year ago is close at hand? We need to find out exactly what Mr. Sholmes knows. There's nothing. I guess I'll present things to you? Mr. Sholmes, would you mind looking at this? This is hardly the time, Mr. Naruhodo, as I'm sure you will appreciate. Oh, no, of course not. My attention is entirely joined to one singular matter now. The pheasant. Anyone would think you hadn't eaten in weeks. Nothing about this. Or this. I'll have to go through this one by one. Doopy-doopy-doo. Bloom. What about the gun? Nothing about the picture. Nothing about this. Am I actually supposed to present anything to him, or is it just talking about stuff? There was no room for doubt with your instructions as telegram, Mr. Sholmes. You were very clear that it was Judge Goku's office that should be searched, so you obviously knew that there's where the list of names would be found. Keisugi A. Shin, T. Gregson, J. Wilson. But we only learnt those 4 names just over 6 months ago now. And only because they appeared as part of the top-secret government communications they were leaked. Or that were leaked. That's true, yes. But at this time, you were unaware of the background. You see, those 4 names were wired to Japan. Around 6 months before that, approximately this time last year, in fact, when you were both still in Japan. It really would be hypocrisy on my part to reprove others for intercepting state secrets. Because after all, I perpetually eavesdropping on communications between British and the Japanese governments. Okay then. You're perpetually doing what? How? And never mind the details, but you should know. No secret is safe from Herlock Sholmes when he has designs on knowing it. Oh my, Mr. Sholmes, what a fabulous line. And now, 1 month from after that list of forenames was wired to the recipient Jigoku in Japan, Dr. John H. Wilson was murdered. As soon as I learned of the incident, a hypothesis rapidly took shape in my mind. As it turned out, I was partly correct and partly mistaken. And nevertheless, it was the beginning of all the tragic events that were to follow. Mr. Sholmes, please, tell us all you know. Was it actually a list of hit targets? Tell us about these 4 names and the tragedy to which they're all somehow connected. As I said, when I learned Dr. Wilson's murder in Japan, my mind immediately turned to those 4 names, because you see, there was someone else on the list, who I believe to be recently deceased. What? Who? A Shin, as it was transcribed in Japanese script. In fact, Mr. Asashin. That was a familiar name to me. She was a professional killer, well known amongst London's unsavory classes. Oh, I see. But she had completely vanished from existence several months before Wilson's murder. So I came to the logical conclusion that she herself been killed, and accordingly I became fearful of the lives of the remaining 2 persons on the list. Kei Asogi and T. Gregson. Owing to our proximity, I decided to take measures to protect Gregson myself. But I determined it would be safest if young Asogi were to stay away from Britain. Ah, so that's why you went to such lengths to prevent his study tour from going ahead. Exactly. Okay. Oh, God. Stop yawning. I need to go to bed earlier tonight because I went to bed late last night. So you already knew who Kazuma-sama was, Mr. Sholmes? Oh yes, Sholmes and I have exchanged correspondence for years. I have recounted many tales about Asogi to him in my letters, and the news of Dr. Wilson's death, of course. So, Dr. Wilson is dead then? I didn't know. Oh, Iris. Right, we weren't supposed to be telling you, just in case it was your father. I know he wasn't my daddy, but still. That's very sad. I'm so sorry, Iris. We knew the significance of the name, obviously, but we just couldn't bring ourselves to tell you. No. What you just told us, Mr. Sholmes, doesn't completely tie in with the facts. There's one big hole in your hypothesis. A big hole, Mr. Naruhodo. Ah, yes. You mean about Asashin, I presume. Oh, of course. Exactly. She wasn't killed, was she? She was in Japan, posing as a visiting student under the assumed name of Giselle Brett. I'm glad you're keeping up, my dear fellow. But I only became aware of that fact 2 days ago in the foyer of the Great Waterloo Hotel. And upon hearing that startling revelation, the hypothesis that I'd formed surrounding these 4 names was completely turned topsy. What? Topsy? The topsy hypothesis? What do you mean when you say your hypothesis was turned topsy, Mr. Sholmes? I had believed all 4 names on the list to be the names of victims. However, I was mistaken. Very much so, as Ashin was a killer. So this telegram is a list of both victims and the killers, is it? Indeed, and it would have seemed that Miss Shin was dispatched from Britain with the sole intention of dispatching Dr. Wilson. her visiting student status being merely a front. Which would, of course, explain why no motive could be determined for her actions. So the real reason Dr. Wilson was killed by a Sashin is because he was the target of assassinations. And forearmed with that knowledge, fresh consideration of this telegram puts the list in a very different perspective. What do you mean? Well, does it not strike you that there is another among the four, who subsequently became a visiting student? Wait, you mean... But of course, a name you know only too well. You mean Kazuma? Oh, I like to think she's be like, oh, of course. He did say in court earlier today. Yes, on the 31st of October, I accompanied Inspector Gregson to Dunkirk in order to carry out a mission. And the mission was the assassination of the Mark. I was listening back to one of my streams when I put the reverb on. It sounds so much better because it actually seems to fit the full flashback thing. Young Mr. Asogi accepted the mission a year ago now. Surely not. In conclusion, this document is a contract of sorts. An international agreement, one might say, to detailing an assassin exchange. An assassin exchange? How could Kazuma possibly have gotten involved in something like that? He was always an assassin. Didn't you know when your bullies just suddenly vanished one day? He killed them. Let's assume that we have two parties, each wishing to dispose of a distinct individual. These two parties then make a contract to swap their respective assassination targets. That would then be an assassin exchange. Barak isn't getting enough screen time, so you resorted to simply for Kazuma. Power up. Okay. So to begin with, the British assassin is dispatched as a visiting student to Japan, where she kills her target. And then, the Japanese assassin is dispatched as a visiting student to Britain, in order to eliminate his target. It certainly does sound like an exchange. But what on earth is the point? Don't forget, Naruhodo, that the British assassin at least escaped conviction, thanks to the diplomatic immunity afforded by consular jurisdiction. Oh, yes. Such jurisdiction should be null and void under the terms of the new treaty between our two countries. So the fact that it was brought into play suggests intervention at the very highest levels. The Queen is at fault. She's hiring assassins. The highest levels. These murders were two sides of the same coin, linked not by the common motive, but by contractual agreement. As such, they appeared utterly unrelated, yet in truth, the assassins were complicit in one singular, devilish scheme. And that disassociation and the safeguard of diplomatic immunity were, I believe, the motivation behind this plot. But wait a minute, Sholmes. If this telegram really is describing the exchange of an assassins as you're suggesting, it would mean that Japanese killer's target was never Sushiro Jigoku at all. It would mean Asogi's target was actually Inspector Gregson. What? Kazuma was here for Gregson? So Judge Jigoku wasn't actually the mark? Yes, that's exactly what it would mean. But why? The plot thickens. Thickens. I hold myself personally responsible for failing to keep the inspector safe. Mr. Sholmes. I told him of my fears and implored him to seek a transfer to an overseas position. Obviously, with the young pickpocket in tow. Yes, Gina. Come to think of it, Inspector Gregson did mention that to us at the Great Exhibition. That he'd be transferring to Paris police and taking Gina with him. But without informing me, he engaged in one last assignment, it seems. And sadly, it turned out to be his very last. This is too much to take in. I miss Gregson and his fish and chips. Weirdly enough, I actually miss him. Alright, everyone, that's quite enough of all that serious talk for one day. Isn't it early? I mean, look at the time. Ah, quite right, Iris. We must conclude our preparations for tomorrow. What preparations? Well, I think I'd make my way back to my hotel room now. This has certainly been a night to remember. It is a little bit sad, though. I mean, I like the idea of you being my daddy. Because then, Susie would have been my big sister. I'm sorry, Iris. I know, Iris. I was thinking quite the same thing. Were you? But if somebody like me would be worthy, I would be delighted to become your sister. What? Really? Oh yes, without question. So, you'll teach me all the ways you know to throw Runo to the floor? Yes, yes, of course. It would be my pleasure. You didn't have to agree quite so readily. Oh, but wait a minute. If Susie's going to be my big sister, you could be my big brother if you want, Runo. Huh? I mean, yes, of course. If you'll have me, I'll gladly be your brother. That means we have to... Wait, we're siblings now. I can't get with Susato anymore. Well done, Iris. You always be mindful of feelings. I've raised you so well. Because being sensitive is your strong suit, naturally. Yay! Everyone's happy and nothing's going to go wrong. Right, I'm going to work extra hard for tomorrow now because it's for my big brother and sister. What is all this talk about preparing for tomorrow? Preparing what? You'll just have to wait and see. Oh. Well, good luck in court tomorrow. I'll be expecting a sterling performance. I'll do my very best, of course. I'm glad they didn't put, like, eating sound effects, because that would be annoying. So the overnight break in the trial's proceedings became a crucial turning point. Exposing new truths while posing new conundrums. That list of 4 names on the telegram in Judge Gogoku's office. An extraordinary assassination plot in which my best friend had somehow become involved. I felt as though I had been plunged into an even greater darkness all of a sudden. But at the same time, I felt sure I would see the light again soon. Family. Because I was lucky enough to have the most wonderful family in the world standing steadfastly behind me. Never mind my actual family. They don't even show up. This is my family. To be continued. There wasn't really an investigation there. It was more just talking. Save. The Trial Part 2. We have... Oh wow, we're not even into 2 hours. Why does it feel so much longer? I think it's just because it's just so much. Let me just catch up on chat. Minecraft is the only game with eating sound effects that don't make me want to shove a screwdriver down my ear. Yeah. Like, there's very, very specific instances where eating noises are fine for me. Otherwise, in every other instance, I'd want to kill the person that makes the noises. It's an actual thing. Look it up. It's actually quite common, that kind of reaction to it. It's not as, common as in, like, everyone has it, but it's more common than what people think. 4th of November, 9:30 a.m., the Old Bailey courtroom. End here? You want me to end here? We still got, like, half an hour. Or actually more. We got, like, 45 minutes. Are you sure you want me to end here? I'm asking everyone in chat, by the way. I don't want to be one guide by Raffatron. The next two are beefy. I want more entertainment, says Baroth. I guess we can just keep going. Before we begin today, I have a brief announcement. As with the closed trial 10 years ago, some astonishing facts have come to light in the proceedings. The revelations that the well-known Reaper is actually an organization illegally executing its own brand of justice. And the discovery that a respected yard inspector was at its heart, until he himself perished in an assassination plot. Well, I say to all members of the judiciary here present on this occasion, that we will stop at nothing to uncover the whole truth behind these disturbing findings. No pigeons! Counsels, you will undertake this trial with the resolve to pursue the truth to the bitter end. Resolve, yes. That's my intention. My lord, if I may inquire. The defendant may speak. On what grounds is Kazimir Sobis permitted to continue in his role as prosecutor? He has admitted to colluding with the victim in a plot to assassinate an innocent man. He shouldn't be enjoying the privilege of freedom, let alone be leading the prosecution. I submitted a written petition to Lord Strongheart, requesting that judgment of my transgression be delayed by 1 day. You did what? In today's proceedings, I intend to expose everything. My whole life for the last 10 years has all been leading up to this 1 day. Kazuma, whatever the outcome of this trial, I'll give my word that I would accept whatever punishment is deemed appropriate, however severe. And I suggest you prepare yourself for the same, Reaper. Cosmo is bristling with hostility today. Like yesterday. I get the distinct impression we're heading into the very dangerous territory. Is that really even Kazuma-sama standing before us? As an extreme exception to normal practices, I have granted his prosecution's request. The defense may find this acceptable, I presume. Yes, my lord. In that case, in the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session again. I don't know why I had to take a breath there. We resume the closed hearing of Barak Van Zeeks. The defense is ready, my lord. The prosecution is more than ready. Very well then, this preamble has taken long enough. Prosecutor Asogi, begin. He has to stand every time, doesn't he? As you wish, my lord. The prosecution calls the first witness to the stand. Bring Seishiro Jigoku into the courtroom. At last, then, we've reached the final battle. He's putting literally everything on the line now in order to get to the truth. He doesn't open his mouth anymore. Come on, Ryunosuke, it's time for that steel resolve, because this is going to be a test to the limit. Witness, state your name and occupation for the court. So it was you who issued this, was it? Your subpoena? I did what was necessary. Well, look what the young man has become. I didn't think I'd see the day when you take that tone with me, I must say. The witness will ensure his responses are pertinent to the questions that asked. My name is Seishiro Jigoku, a Supreme Court judge from the Empire of Japan. 16 years ago, this man came to London as a visiting student. 6 years later, he returned to Japan. As well as presiding over the Supreme Court, he is also currently Japan's Minister of Foreign Affairs. I am, of course, fully aware of Mr. Jigoku and his preeminent roles. I invited him personally to the International Forensic Science Symposium as a representative of his country. I hear he also played a key role in the conclusion of the Anglo-Japanese Treaty of Friendship and Navigation. It was a great honor to be involved in the negotiations. I'll put my all into that treaty. Judge Jigoku, I must ask. Well, I never. Fancy the young murdering student turning up here of all places. You acquitted me yourself. And now, I'm a practicing defense lawyer. Yes, and full of self-importance like your friend across the courtroom. I see. There's a difference between self-importance and just being in the role. We came here to London by invitation to the International Forensic Science Symposium. The IFS. But then, without informing anyone of your plans, you took flight to France. Took flight? I object to that turn of phrase. Then explain yourself. What exactly were the circumstances? He's giving me, what was his name? The guy from was it the first game? Emma's Case. That guy. With a mixture of the Socrates character from, Dual Destinies. Then explain yourself. What exactly were the circumstances? Well, I was somewhat expecting this, and I'm sorry to say I declined to comment. What? Leaving the country prematurely when I was invited guest may be questionable etiquette. But my decision is unrelated to this case. I can't be bound to testify. Gant, that was it, yeah. Everyone's saying Gant in chat. Yes. Hey, Astro Dude. Unrelated, you say? I appreciate the respected police inspector has been killed. Or I appreciate, I don't respect, for which I offer my condolences. However, being an alien... You're not an alien, you're a human being. I obviously never met the man, nor do I know the first thing about him. As such, I'm in no position to testify. It's as simple as that. So you would run from all of this? I beg your pardon. This case is far more reaching than a murder of Inspector Gregson. It has ties to another murder, a case that was tried in Japan almost a year ago now. A year ago in Japan? The murder of John H. Wilson, you mean? That's right, and you, Judge Jigoku, are at the heart of both cases. The defense has evidence to prove it. Well, Yurionosuke, I see from the look in your eyes that you resolve to carry this through to the very end, too. Let's see your evidence, then. What proof do you have that Seishiro Jigoku is involved in this case?
Take that!
This is a telegram detailing a communication sent between Britain and Japan approximately 1 year ago. The communication contained 4 names: K. Asogi, A. Shin, T. Gregson, and J. Wilson. You little... Oh, where did you get that? In Tokyo, from your office, Judge Jigoku. The fact that he looked like he was about to smash it and then midway slows down so he doesn't. What? How on earth did you... What is all this about? Why is my name on that list? This list of 4 names follow a certain pattern. T. Gregson and J. Wilson are the names of victims. Keisuke and A. Shin are the names of assassins. No. A year ago in Tokyo, Dr. John H. Wilson's life was taken in a Western-style restaurant in the capital. The culprit was found to be a visiting student who went by the name of Giselle Brett, but her real name was Asashin, a professional killer sent on a mission to kill from Great Britain. A. Shin and her victim John H. Wilson, and the murderer took place here in London was a counterpart to that crime. An assassin sent from Japan, also a visiting student, Kazuma Asogi, whose victim was the British police inspector Tobias Gregson. K. Asogi and T. Gregson, one assassin from each country to kill a target residing in the other. What exactly is the defense suggesting? These two cases of murder, one that took place in Britain and one in Japan, were masterminded by a pair of individuals from each country as a form of assassin exchange. And the telegram the defense has acquired is proof of this international contract to kill. What? The telegram was found in your office, Judge Gigoku. In other words, the mastermind in Japan was you. Judge Gigoku, what's all this about? And you, Kazuma, you lied. During yesterday's proceedings, you acknowledged that you accepted the assassination mission, but the mark wasn't Judge Gigoku at all. It was T. Gregson, Detective Inspector of Scotland Yard, as shown by the name on the killing contract. Very impressive, Ryunosuke. But actually, I didn't lie. The name of the target I was ordered to kill never passed my lips yesterday. The idea that Seisho Rigoku was the mark came entirely from you. You deliberately avoided saying a name? The defense's claim these four names indicate some sort of international assassin exchange. I'm sure I speak for all present when I say that the very idea seems utterly absurd. Well, Mr. Jigoku, what do you have to say for yourself? His silence only goes to prove his guilt. There's another very important point that this new development brings to light. There's now a distinct possibility that the scene of the Inspector Gregson's actual murder was in the witness's cabin aboard the SS Grouse. Judge Gigoku, you have to testify now. To refuse would put you in contempt of court. Well, you can't decide that. The judge decides that. There's no need for quite such a vicious stare, young man. Very well, then. As a parting gift to you all, I'll tell you everything I know. It seems this Japanese gentleman has information that the court must hear about the alleged assassin exchange and the events of the night of the 31st of October. Present your formal testimony now. As you wish, my lord. I have to do two similar voices. Great. Witness testimony! The assassin exchange. It's true that Kazuma Sogi was assigned the assassination mission 1 year ago now. The target was Inspector T. Gregson. That was a condition of the British study tour. However, in the end, something happened that meant the young man was unable to carry out his mission. On the evening in question, a member of the crew was on duty outside my cabin at all times. If there had been a shot fired, the crewman would have heard it. So clearly, I can't be involved. So you admit it then? At this communication, it suggests there really was an assassin exchange arrangement between Britain and Japan. A political endeavor at the highest levels. Not something I could discuss here. to use such a worthy practice as a foreign study to coerce someone to commit murder. It's the most appalling thing I've ever heard. Appalling? Well, it's easy to judge. Pardon? Masogi has a reason for taking his sword to that British inspector, you know. What? Which is why he accepted the mission in the first place. Isn't that right, Council? Kazuma-sama? Judge Gogoku, if you are the mastermind behind this operation in Japan, then tell the court the identity of your counterpart in Britain. I am not obliged to divulge that information. As I said yesterday, I've killed nobody. I freely admit that I accepted a mission, but on the night the plan was to be executed, I backed out. In short, this assassination exchange was the defense, as identified as unrelated to the events of the case. The crucial point is this. Your police inspector can't have perished aboard that ship in Dunkirk. Because if he'd been shot in the cabin, it's inconceivable that the member of the crew would have heard it. That's right. Gregson was killed after returning to London, in the room on Fresno Street. And the perpetrator of the crime was the Reaper, Beric van Zieks. The prosecution's accusation remains unchanged. To think that a seemingly innocent foreign exchange program was a facade for such Machiavellian dealings. Clearly it's a plot only a government minister and a high-ranking judge, such as the witness, could hope to execute. Well, it seems I recall that it was someone on the British side who controlled everything. Be that as it may, it is not the place of this court to pursue this villainous assassin exchange plot. We are concerned with only the tangible evidence pertaining to the murder of Inspector Gregson. Is the defense clear on that point, Counsel? Yes, my lord. I'll keep that in mind as I cross-examine the witness. You just don't want me to find out the truth, do you? Because it's actually you. Turns out it was Osato all along. She's actually the mastermind behind everything. The assassin exchange.
Hold it!
A year ago, and Kazuma was still in Japan then. Correct. It was at the examination center for applicants for the studio tour that I approached him. I'll never forget it. I remember exactly what you said. You just came out and asked me forthright if I'd considered traveling to Britain on an assassination mission. Surely not. I thought it was a joke at first, of course, but then it was made clear to me that if I didn't accept, I wouldn't be considered for the study tour. So you agreed to it just for that? I mean, I know how much you wanted to study in England, but assassination? The Emperor of Japan had accepted a proposal from the British Empire at the time. An agreement to send a student from each country to the others to deepen cultural understanding and friendship. And also murder. But behind the scenes, the chosen students were to be given assassination missions. I had no choice but to accept the proposal that originated from my British counterpart. Why? Why didn't you expose the plot there and then? Britain acknowledges no part in these alleged misbegotten dealings. I advise you not to make spurious allegations, Foreign Minister Jigoku. As a witness, I am bound to tell the truth, my lord. Anyway, I picked Asogi and explained the details of the plan to him.
Hold it!
If I ever went to school and they were like, oh, we're going to need you to go abroad for a few months. While there, we need you to kill some people. I'd be like, no, thank you. Why Kazuma? Why did you pick him as the assassin? He was the most capable out of all the applicants. And in addition, he has a sword. Hey, Matt Manito, welcome. I knew his desire to travel to Britain was very strong. In fact, it was almost more than a desire. It was his whole purpose in life. Yes, as his best friend, and he said as his brother friend. As his best friend, I can attest to that. The way he threw himself into his studies, the way he pursued becoming qualified as a lawyer. It was ultimately for that one single goal of being accepted on a study tour in Britain. And of course, we know the reason behind that. He was determined to find out for himself the truth about his father, Genshin Asogi. You got work for the next 4 hours, so you can't really watch. That's fine. You can just listen to my dulcet tones and whiny voice. There's nothing I wouldn't have done to get there. But be that agreeing to assume the roles of an assassin or betraying people's trust. Well, you certainly did a fine job of betraying mine, Asogi. But why was Inspector Gregson the target? I have no idea. Those were the orders from Britain. I was in no position to question them. You have no idea, really? I find that hard to believe. Oh, do you? Judge Gigoku was once a visiting student here in Britain for himself, of course. Perhaps he has some connection with Inspector Gregson from that time. That's a lot of gobbledygook, Matt Menino. Did I say all that? The defense really ought to catch up. With what? With the fact that the assassin exchange has absolutely nothing to do with the case under scrutiny here. Yes, I've already admitted to recruiting Asogi. They're speaking in code in my chat. I don't understand anything. I presume you're referring to the incident that occurred during Kazuma's passage to Britain in January? The awful tragedy that took place in the steamship. Word arrived at the ministry some 2 weeks after the ship's departure from our shores. The visiting student had been killed, but his body had somehow gone missing in Hong Kong. The news was wired from a detective I'd placed in the ship to accompany the assassin. Obviously, Kazuma didn't actually die at all, but he did lose his memory, including all details about his special mission. Did you not consider dispatching another assassin at the point? But that wasn't possible, simply because that black-clad young student over there had already put himself forward as Asogi's replacement, and there was no way to stop him from reaching Britain. My hands were completely tied. So Mr. Shone's strategy worked perfectly. He predicted everything that would happen. Months later, my memory returned. Lost in your collected knowledge. They're fighting against me, chat. Chat's against me, some of them. But I never intended to go through with the assassination mission anyway. So you were playing me right out from the outset, were you? Is that it? I'd sooner be guilty of that crime than taking someone else's life. I was prepared to do whatever I had to in order to get myself here to Britain. This line of questioning has gone long enough. All the court should be concerned about is the testimony given by the witness. Our details relating to his relationship with Inspector Gregson and the victim's murder. In that case, as I've already made perfectly clear, I had no connection to the man or his death. And you have some means of substantiating this plea.
Hold it!
This is calling me Balfatron a few days back. Now you're starting to sound like a transformer. Balfatron. Transform! What is it they say? Autobots, roll out, that's it. Outside your cabin in the first-class area of the SS Grouse, you mean? Yes, that's right. Not least because there was a murder of a student passenger earlier in the year, I imagine. The liner operators have taken to posting crewmen outside every first-class cabin door. I can confirm the presence of the crewman guard myself. What do you mean? Because I accompanied Inspector Gregson to Dunkirk that night. I witnessed it with my own eyes. There was a well-built crewman standing guard directly in front of the door to the witness's cabin. At that particular time, of course, I'd gone to the ship's dining room for dinner. The inspector and I asked the crewman to allow us into the cabin while we waited for Judge Jigoku's return. I suppose Inspector Gregson was there in his capacity as the Reaper. He was intending to take the witness's life. Exactly. As I have said numerous times now, I had no intention of killing anyone. So the crewman let two potential assassins into the cabin that he was supposed to be guarding? Not the most convincing of centuries, really. In truth, those were my thoughts too. But anyway, I stayed to talk with Inspector Gregson for a short while. And then I left him there and made my way off the ship alone. Was the guard still at the door when you went? Yes, he glared as I walked past. You see, that proves it. I mean, we know that the funnel was blocked with a cloth, but we didn't make a note of it in our journal. Unless it's this, because this would explain why no one would have heard it, because no one would have been around to have heard it.
Objection!
I was right. Yes, as the court has heard, there was a crewman posted outside Judge Jigoku's cabin. However, we can be sure that, contrary to the witness's claim, the guard wasn't there at all times. What? I have here a notice of a particular event that was scheduled to take place aboard the steamship on the 31st. Where did you get that? It's evidence gathered by Herlock Sholmes. You were acquainted yesterday, if you remember. Herlock Sholmes again. According to this itinerary, after leaving the port of Dunkirk at exactly 10 p.m. and for a period of 20 minutes, all crewmen of the SS Grouse were to gather on deck for an evacuation drill. All crew members were away from their posts. And during the 20-minute interval, of course, any gunshots emanating from your cabin wouldn't have been heard by no one. In summary, Judge Jigoku, you had an ample opportunity to commit the crime.
Objection!
A 20-minute window of opportunity? That's an excellent find for Yonosuke. But it amounts to nothing. Why? Because the witness clearly stated in his testimony that no incident occurred in his cabin. Unless you have decisive evidence that shows his testimony to be false, your accusation is nothing more than conjecture. Can you prove that it wasn't, though? Very true. Well, counsel. Inspector Gregson was killed in Judge Jigoku's cabin that night. I'm certain of it. Because the defense has evidence to prove it. You will present your evidence for the defense at once, counsel. What proof do you have that the victim's life was taken in Jigoku's cabin on the 31st of October?
Take that!
Judge Jigoku, this was found in your cabin yesterday. What is that? The crown of a pocket watch. A pocket watch? And if you observe, the victim's pocket watch, which we know he treasured, is missing precisely that part. It can't be. Moreover, this crown is a perfect fit on the spindle protruding from the victim's watch. Now, the fact that this was retrieved from Judge Shigoku's cabin tells us that the victim's watch almost certainly broke there. In other words, the victim was killed on the 31st during the 20-minute evacuation drill. In the cabin occupied by you, Judge Shigoku. Well, you're razor sharp, aren't you, you young murderer?
Objection!
Expertly maneuvered, Ryunosuke. And your argument sounds entirely plausible. At first. But rather like this pocket watch, it's full of cracks. What? And I believe Judge Shigoku feels the same way. I was wrong to acquit you earlier this year. Sorry? If I'd known that it would result in anyone having to listen to this drivel, I would have declared you guilty just to spare the world your ridiculous bombast. I think it's clear that the witness will have to give further testimony. He's being so mean. We were friends moments before. Can we go back to that? When you hear what exactly happened in my cabin that night, you'll notice the pitfall into which you've stumbled. Prior to your renewed testimony, I would like to clarify one point. The fact that this part of the victim's watch was discovered in your cabin means that you have acknowledged he was there, I presume. Yes, I do. Very well, then. You may proceed to give your formal testimony. About what exactly happened on your cabin aboard the ship on the evening of the 31st of October. Of course, as a man of the law, I have no intention of obstructing justice. Sure. The events in the cabin. I had a guest waiting for me when I returned to my cabin after finishing my evening meal in the dining room. When I walked through the door, I mustachioed an Englishman was there. I mustachioed, foolishly waving a gun at me. I soon took care of him with an Ippon-Seo throw, though he couldn't wait to run away after that. I imagine his watch broke when I threw him over my shoulder. It was nothing to do with this murder. The inspector was clearly killed, having been returned to Britain because his body was found in London. Ippon-Seo, a common jiu-jitsu martial arts technique in my country. I was careful not to use too much force, but the man was obviously landed too heavily for his watch to take. So, Ryunosuke Naruhodo, I imagine you see the flaw in your logic now, can't you? What? The fact that the pocket watch was broken in the witness's cabin is in no way proves the victim murder took place there. Just because he made something up doesn't make it true. I have no doubt the inspector intended to kill me, but he didn't manage to pull the trigger. Yes, because he was merely the tactician, not the Reaper's hand of death. Well, the testimony appears to have made perfect sense so far as I can tell. Lady expects my gratitude for understanding, my lord. But if this testimony holds, Judge Shigoku will be deemed to have no involvement in this case. Well, counsel, I really see no reason for wasting precious court time here on a cross-examination. There it is. Sorry, my lord. The defense has a right to cross-examine, and I don't intend to squander that. You're an embarrassment to the countrymen, not knowing when you're beaten. In that case, proceed, Mr. Naruhodo. Everyone is being so mean to me.
Hold it!
Because the so-called guard posted at your cabin door had just let your killer pass, you mean? Apparently, Gregson told the crewman he was a police inspector, which was the truth, of course. He wouldn't have had his identification with him, though. He had his trench coat and mustache, not to mention the bag of chips. I imagine the crewman was convinced. Why is Balleroff typing laughs out like Scooby-Doo? Ree! But the man occupying him would have had two swords slung over his waist. You mean me? Who else? Yes, that's true. You would have adopted the sight, hoped the sight of a few swords might have set off alarm bells in the guard's head. The point is, I left the cabin before his occupant returned, and I immediately disembarked the ship. Certainly all I can tell you is that only the inspector was waiting for me when I arrived back at my cabin. And you entered without any inkling of his suspicion? That's right. None whatsoever.
Hold it!
Obviously, you're talking about Inspector Gregson. Yes, though at the time I didn't know the man's name. There was no time for introductions. I value my life over manners. By which you mean that the inspector was there to assassinate you, I suppose? That was certainly the impression given by the gun pointing in my direction. But I've never seen the muzzle of a revolver shake about so much in all my life. Anyone would think the man had never shot somebody before. Believe it or not, most of us haven't. Anyway, there was no time to call for help with the crewman at the door, so I dealt with the man myself. What did you do, teleport over to him?
Hold it!
Even though the man had a gun, that was a very brave move, wasn't it? My Ippon Seo is far faster than a bullet, I can assure you. Physically impossible, shut up. But surely all that commotion caused the crewman to come in, didn't it? Yes, of course. He burst in immediately without knocking. The inspector hurled himself at the stocky fellow and just managed to slip past him to make his escape. The outstanding guard does it again. Luckily, there aren't many situations I can't get out of using a quick Ippon Seo throw. God, I think he said sip on EO.
Hold it!
The crown snapped off and the glass covering the face of the watch was cracked. Preferably the man's head being pulled off or his spine cracking, wouldn't you say? Or preferable. Not that the man was spared for long. A bullet to the chest soon saw to that. But the point is, the broken pocket watch doesn't prove that a murder took place. Absolutely not. All the watch proves is the power of my jujutsu throw. Hachigoku teleports behind you. Nothing personal, kid. Whatever you say, it doesn't quite ring true that no shot was fired in that cabin. Because there was an obvious bullet hole in the wall. What are you talking about? Hmm? That's what the star of your lowbrow detective stories told you, is it? Well, I don't care for such fiction. Haven't you worked it out yet, you little stripling? Or stripling? No murder took place in my cabin. He has Freddy Fazbear vibes? Oh, God.
Hold it!
But there's no evidence that proves the victim ever returned to London alive. Just take a moment to think about the idea of yours through now, stripling. What? If the inspector was killed on the steamship in France, how on earth could he have gotten back to Britain? When the people die, their bodies remain at the same spot. It's a devil of a thing. Well, then, obviously the culprit must have moved the body. How exactly? Carrying a corpse off a ship in your arms would raise a few eyebrows at least, don't you think? Well, yes, that's true, but all passenger luggage is expected when it's unloaded from arriving vessels, and I would like to think the border police would query the corpse of an English gentleman as hand luggage. Never do that again? Oh, man. If the murder had taken place aboard the ship, you would imagine the body would have been disposed of at sea. And there would be no sense in risking being caught by attempting to transport the body back to Britain. That's killed the idea, then. But perhaps not. Mrs. Arrow? We've heard that the first-class passengers were under... What's going on? Under constant scrutiny by the crewmen posted to guard them. Which would mean that the culprit had no opportunity to dispose of the body in the sea. Yes, that's true. So, transporting the body to Britain may have been the only viable alternative. Dear me, you really are new to this, aren't you? I thought I'd been perfectly clear, but it seems I'm going to have to explain it in words you understand. I think I ought to alter my testimony with your consent, of course, my lord. I have no objections. State your amended testimony now, or I'll throw some doves at you. I don't want to open that. I meant to move. If we had only taken a picture of them, like saying, oh, this place must have a fridge.
Hold it!
There's an idea. Think about it, Stripling. All passengers and crew disembarked at the same time and passed through the same checks at the border. The symposium guests were then driven straight to the hotel in carriages organized by the ministry. And we met you as soon as you arrived at the hotel. So you did. Well, then remind me, did I have a corpse over my shoulder at the time? What? No. So we are in agreement then. I couldn't possibly have brought the inspector's body back to Britain. Hold on a minute. Because he mentioned that, I've got to check now. He brought a large suitcase. And he has probably had a body in it. Wait. I said that, didn't I? I have to see if that's true now. Unless, of course, I developed some clever device these days to instantly move things from A to B. Funny you should say that. Professor Hairbrain's invention didn't actually work, if you remember, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes, of course. The defense has become unusually quiet, I notice. Yes, because there's really nothing more to say. So that's his story. Well, I suppose if you think about it, whenever you drop a teacup in the office and it breaks, we don't say Mr. Naruhodo must have been murdered there, do we? Is that a veiled threat about what might happen to me if I break another one? And the fact is, Inspector Gregson's body was found in the little room on Fresno Street. If he really was killed in Judge Gogoku's cabin, the body would have been moved somehow, obviously. Transporting a dead body over a country border, that would be impossible for the majority of people. So there must have been some special circumstances that made it possible for the culprit then. And that would be a vital realization, I think, Mr. Naruhodo. So I have to get right to the end again. And then present the picture.
Objection!
There's no possible way you could have moved Inspector Gregson's body, you say? I would say the opposite is true. And what's that supposed to mean? Yonosuke looking more nervous in that picture than the man with the possible body in the suitcase. Far from being impossible for you to do, the transporting of Inspector Gregson's body back to Britain is something only you could do. What are you talking about, Yonosuke? As well as being a judge, Mr. Jigoku is also Japan's Minister of Foreign Affairs. Which means he's exempt from having his luggage searched when he enters the country. We learnt that when we first met you upon your arrival in London. Oh, gotta get my flashback voice on. Well, look at all those passport checkouts and luggage searches at the border. Took a rather lot out of time. I must say I'm very envious of your ministerial status. You didn't have to go through any of that, did you? Ah, I knew you were jealous. I presume you recall this, Judge Goku. It's a photograph we took in the foyer of the hotel to mark the occasion. As the court will note, you have with you your large travel trunk. Large enough, in fact, to have a corpse inside. Mr. Naruhodo, surely you're not suggesting... I'm afraid I am, yes. 3 days ago, when we were chatting innocently with you, the new arrivals from Japan in the hotel, the body of Inspector Gregson was just meters away from us, inside Judge Goku's trunk. Ugh. Order in the court. I'm skeptical, counsel, that a man's grown body, or a grown man's body, could fit inside that largest travel trunk. It could. Because I happen to know that the witness himself, a man of considerable size, fits inside this trunk. And verifying that would be extremely simple, wouldn't it, Judge Goku? But inside his trunk was how horrifying. And after we'd spoken with you at the Great Waterloo Hotel, it was also kind of it would explain his position too. You had the opportunity to visit the apparent scene on Fresno Street, taking your trunk with you in a cab and to deposit the inspector's body. I don't have to listen to this nonsense. Dr. Gori, the coroner who examined the body, was confirmed the possibility. She's acknowledged that there are signs that steps have been made to disguise the true time of death. The onset of the body's decomposition could have been delayed by storing it in a refrigerator. Counsel, as I remember explaining yesterday, refrigerators of the requisite size are few and far between. Yes, I'm sure they are. But one place they certainly found is on large ocean liners. Such ships are equipped with electrical refrigerated cold rooms to keep food fresh on their long sea voyages. And the SS Grouse is no exception. Professor Mikatoba told me all about it only yesterday. Well, Judge Goku. However much you prolong this debate, you can't eliminate the truth. All the evidence points to you being the killer. Well, this is all very heartening. I can see that it was a wise move, letting Asogi and you embark on this study tour. What are you talking about now? Logical reasoning, of course. All court proceedings will be built upon logical reasoning in the new century. And I can see that you've both laid firm foundations of that already. Judge Goku, please stop diverting attention away from the issue at hand. The defense has made an accusation against you. How do you respond? Respond? There's really no need for me to respond, is there? Why ever not? Because before you can even begin to answer the question of when the victim was killed, you must first establish one key fact. How? Or where? I guess that one too. Where the victim was killed. It's quite logical. The actual scene of the crime. The prosecution's stance is unaltered. The killing took place on Fresno Street where the gunshot was heard. As the accused, Barak Van Zeek, shot the victim at point-blank range. Even though I've had tons of evidence tell me it's not him. Since no tangible evidence exists to disprove the prosecution's claim at this time, the defense's deductions amount to little more than an elaborate fairy tale. I'm afraid that's how logical reasoning in the British are known for really works, young stripling. The victim was shot in that little room on Fresno Street and died instantly. I'm afraid it's the prosecution's claim that's the only fairy tale here. How can you say that? I thought we were friends! Quite simply, because the claim directly contradicts a certain piece of evidence in our possession. Very tantalizing, counsel. I think you better explain yourself to the court, don't you? The prosecution claims that the Inspector Gregson died instantly when he was shot at the scene on Fresno Street. But this evidence clearly contradicts the claim. Is it the freaking autopsy report again? What would it be? Would it be this again? Because it was inside the trunk. And the only way it would get inside the trunk is if he was put in there. Yeah, maybe I'll go with this.
Take that!
A photograph of the victim in a very location you claim he wasn't killed. Oh, literally the moment I present it, I see the pose you mentioned, yeah. Yes, but the point is the posture of the body itself. If Inspector Gregson had been shot there in that room, it's out of the question that his body would have been curled up like a ball like that. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but your logic is flawed. He could easily have adopted that fetal position due to the pain of the shot, which subsequently proved fatal.
Objection!
But if he died instantly, there wouldn't be any pain. He'd just be dead. I'm sorry to disappoint you, Judge Gogoku, but it's your logic that is flawed. What? According to this autopsy report, the victim died instantly. He would have felt no pain, much less have been able to draw himself in that position. Which begs the question of why the victim's body is curled up in that way. Though the answer should be abundantly clear by now. You're suggesting. The inspector's body took on that posture ahead of its arrival in Fresno Street, before it was coldly turned out onto the floor. From the inside of a large travel trunk. No, you're quite right. The shape of the body. It looks exactly as if it had been kept inside a confined space. I was right all along! See, sometimes I can make great deductions on my own. Judge Gogoku, present your trunk for examination. I believe it's very possible that it will contain traces of the victim's blood. Present my trunk? I refuse. What? On what grounds? I'm the Minister of Foreign Affairs in the Empire of Japan. I shouldn't have to put up with this treatment just because of some striking baseless accusations. In other words, Judge Gogoku, there is blood in your trunk. I decline to answer that. As the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I have privilege that allow me to... At this moment, you're not a government minister. You're a witness in the trial of Britain's highest court. I don't care who you are or what your status outside of this courtroom might be. You will not withhold information. Yeah! Tell him! Yeah! Tell that to everyone in the world! Nothing is far more important than the truth. Order in the court. Well, Mr. Jigoku, what's it to be? You can't be serious. You did it? Have you named him at all, Kazuma Sogi? What? You're the one that killed him. It wasn't me. Very well, I admit it. I did bring the inspector's body into the country. Inside my trunk, exactly as postulated by the defense. Dear God, outrageous! So it was you. You admit to Inspector Gregson... No, I admit to nothing more than what I've said. Of killing the man, I certainly have no recollection. What on earth is that cryptic statement supposed to mean? I merely disposed of the victim's inspector's body, which was left in my cabin, in order to avoid unwanted attention. As the judicial assistant over there pointed out, I had no chance to throw it into the ocean. So I decided my only option was to bring it into Britain with me and dispose of it somewhere else. You can't still deny it. If you didn't do it, then who on earth did kill the man? As you know, there was one other person in my cabin that night. He had the opportunity. And moreover, he'd already accepted a mission to take the inspector's life. Oh. That's right. Who else could it have been? It was you, Kazuma Sogi. You. And now they're just blaming each other. I never thought you'd stoop to this, Seishiro Jigoku. You've taken the words straight out of my mouth. Prosecutor Kazuma Sogi. You thought by leaving the body in my cabin you could pin the crime on me, did you? Well, the prosecution counsel has already admitted to visiting the witness's cabin on the night in question. Yes, on an assassination mission, no less. You wouldn't. So, what do you make of that, young stripling? Stripling! Just throw Kazuma in jail, he's a killer! You've heard my testimony now, and all that I have to say on the matter. I admit to nothing more. Objection. Nuh-uh. It's like, nuh-uh, you did. I don't believe this. Counsel for the defense. What is your position now? The court awaits your response to the witness's assertion. The assertion that on the night in question, the victim's assailant was in fact Mr. Kazuma Sogi. This isn't the dead end it seems to be. The answer's right in front of me. It comes down to Jigoku, or Kazuma. Both of them had the opportunity to kill Gregson, but only one of them did it. And I'm just a step away from proving who. That's a great reference there, Balrog. It's like, Kazuma, how do you know what's good for me? Jigoku, that's my opinion! Very well. The defense is ready to respond to the assertion put forward by Judge Jigoku. The idea that the victim's murder could have been committed by Prosecutor Sogi is... impossible. I'm going to save. Now, this is different. It's not saying it is what happened. It's saying that it's possible or impossible. The thing is, it is possible doesn't mean that it's what happened. Judge Jigoku, let me remind you of something you said only a few moments ago. You claim that the logical reasoning is the future for the judicial process. It is, no question. Well, logical reasoning can prove something here. Namely, that it would have been impossible for Prosecutor Yosogi to commit the crime. Oh yeah! It's this song again. What? The court will only accept an argument that is supported by compelling evidence. So present what you have, counsel. What proof is there that the alleged demonstrates the impossibility of Prosecutor Sogi's involvement? Now I've actually got to prove it, and now I've got to think about it. I think it's got to be the trunk, but there might be something else here. I'm gonna have to.
Take that!
You're making the evidence weep here, Ryunosuke Naruhodo. Sorry? Every piece of evidence has role to play in arriving at the truth. And they're not playthings you can toss around the courtroom for entertainment. Ah. And never mind the evidence, you're about to make me weep, Mr. Naruhodo. Oh no, I can't upset Suzato-san, or I'll end up being upset too. We know a member of the crew was on sentry duty outside the first-class cabin nearly all the time. So long as the guard was there, it would have been impossible to fire a shot without being heard. And that's very much it narrows down when the victim could have been committed, or the crime. I forgot that we have Clint's autopsy report for some reason. What can I present? Let's go with the case, I guess.
Take that!
Nope. We're making everyone cry. I am failing. I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to be presenting. Maybe it's just a notice again.
Take that!
Okay, then yeah. This itinerary for the crew members of the SS Grouse, my lord. This is conclusive proof. An itinerary? What does that prove? How does that prove anything? Judge Gigoku, the moment you acknowledge that you found the victim's body in your cabin, this itinerary suddenly became much more significant. What? Why? On the night in question, as always, a crewman sentry was on guard outside your cabin door. As long as he was there, nobody could have fired a shot inside the cabin. Absolutely, because it's inconceivable that the guard wouldn't have heard it come to investigate. So that tells us that the crime must have taken place when the guard was elsewhere. And that narrows it down to the 20 minutes just before the 10 o'clock, or just after, as indicated on the itinerary. Yes, I see no flaw in your reasoning so far. But the crucial point is this. When the evacuation drill took place, the steamship had already put to sea for the port of Dunkirk. Now, clearly the murder could only have been committed by somebody who was aboard the vessel at the time. But Prosecutor Asogi stated in yesterday's proceedings, I can't be bothered right now. I didn't come to Great Britain to take anyone's life. So I left Gregson and disembarked that ship. I spent that night at a boarding house in town and then returning to England the following morning. There you go. Which I'm sure the court will agree is conclusive proof that Kazuma Sogi couldn't possibly have carried out the killing. Ugh. I like to think that when he does that, you could just see like small cracks form. No, absolutely not. I don't accept that at all. What do you mean? The boy's just saying that to exonerate himself. We can't trust that he really disembarked the vessel. Obviously, after he left my cabin, he hid himself somewhere nearby on the ship. Just waiting for his chance to come back and finish the... No, that's out of the question. Isn't it, Kazuma? As the defense rightly recalls, I disembarked the vessel and spent the night in a boarding house in Dunkirk. And as I said yesterday, I signed my name in the accommodations register book. And all extremely easy to verify and undeniable proof. No, There's no escape this time. You can't forget that you're a judge of a government minister. It's time you gave the court an honest answer as a common man. You killed Inspector Tobias Gregson and transported his corpse back to Britain. The stand has already been weakened by the leg. Then you dumped the body in the room in Fresno Street and made it look as if the murder had happened there. That was a great spin. That's what really happened, isn't it? Seishiro Jigoku. It was that damn trial 10 years ago. That's when all this began. Looking back now, my fate was decided that day. I was doomed already. Ah! Oh, God. Why is it going upwards? It's over. My life is over. He went Super Saiyan or something because everything went upwards. A British assassin to eliminate the professor in Japan. A Japanese assassin to eliminate an detective in Britain. Both assassins will use diplomatic immunity to evade conviction and return safely to their homelands. The assassin exchange request arrived from Britain about 1 year ago. Though it was hardly a request, it was a demand. And for that, you decided to recruit Mr. Asogi. But things don't go according to plan. You've chosen assassins never made it to Britain. And you found yourself unable to dispatch a replacement. Because I was already on my way to Britain at that time, in Kazuma's place. And that left me with only one option for carrying out my obligation. To eliminate the mob myself, personally. Of course, there was but a single opportunity for me to do that. The International Forensic Science Symposium, I presume. That's right. I decided it would be safest to carry out the plan before my arrival in Britain. So I enlisted the help of my British counterpart. And made arrangement for a pretext that would take the inspector to Dunkirk. To lure the man in, he was given a sham mission by the Reaper. What? The Reaper? But there's only one person who could have done that. The mastermind of the entire operation. The Reaper himself. So, that means the assassin exchange was... It was all planned by the Reaper. I'm not at liberty to say anything about my British counterpart. Anyway, the inspector accepted the Reaper's mission and dutifully infiltrated my cabin on the steamship. But it was a trap designed to lead him to France and his own death. Oh, how awful. It was past 9 o'clock when I returned to my cabin from the dining hall that evening. I didn't give him the time to attack me. I choked him until he lost consciousness. But there was a guard just outside the door, so I left it at that for the time being. Even the slightest noise might have aroused suspicion, so I bided my time waiting. For the 20 minutes after 10 o'clock, I had intended to finish him by strangulation, but moments before I had the chance, he suddenly came around and went for me in a reckless move. I had received the British issue gun 16 years earlier, being a member of the judiciary as a visiting student. I never imagined I'd have to use it for something like that. So the revolver belongs to you, does it? Then the victim was killed inside your cabin on the SS Grouse. Which begs the question of why you arranged his body to be discovered in the room of Fresno Street. The young judicial assistant over there was already answered that question. There was no way I could take the body up on the deck to throw it over the side. That's precisely where all the crewmen were gathered for their evacuation drill. So before the first-class cabin sentries returned, I took the corpse to the refrigeration room. And then on arriving in Dover, you concealed the body in the trunk in order to smuggle it past the border police? I knew I needed to take steps if the police were to be convinced that the body was found in London. In that case, you must have known. You must have had intimate details of Inspector Gregson's intended schedule. Yes, my British counterpart sent me everything I needed to know. The inspector was due at Fresno Street at 5 o'clock that afternoon, in order to meet a man by the name of Hugh Boone. I didn't say it this time. From who he would take back his police identification. I decided that man would be the perfect person to set up the culprit. So I took the hackney carriage out there with the body still in the trunk. That must have been just after we took this photograph with you at the hotel then. Yes, I wasn't expecting a welcoming committee. I was more than a little nervous. On Fresno Street, I spotted a young girl selling a little firecrackers. Miss Venus, of course. I conceived of the candle trick here and there. There and then. So I donned a simple disguise and approached the girl to buy firecrackers to replicate a gunshot. What sort of disguise? For some reason, the inspector had a bright red hairpiece in his own traveling case. So I put that on, although I suspect it drew more attention to myself than I would have otherwise. The hairpiece was found at the scene. The inspector had it ready for the Red-Headed League investigation. I only arrived at the room at 5:15. So I quickly placed the body on the floor, moved the notice board, and set up my little candle trick. I arranged it so the firecrackers would go off with a bang around 15 minutes later. So that Mr. Boone, who was due to arrive at 5, would walk straight into a trap. Except, at the last moment, I made a careless blunder. Well, what was that? I imagined it was the bag of fish and chips. I didn't notice that it had fallen out of his overcoat when I moved the body to the refrigeration room. I put it back in his pocket the following morning, but... well, it seems the warmth of the heated cabin had accelerated the decay of the fish. Anyway, that's everything. All the sordid details of what I did. Objection! Hold it! Bang! Or that works too. I've heard enough. We've arrived at the truth about the murder of one of the country's most capable and respected police inspectors. The witness will be tried in the coming days. For a crime of such a vile nature, you can expect the most severe penalty. An exchange of assassins. What a foolhardy idea. Mr. Jigoku, one last detail. Who was your counterpart in Britain? Who was the mastermind behind the assassin exchange? Nothing you say now can make matters any worse for you. Just tell us. Enough! I've already told you that I cannot say. Even though as things stand, you may very well never set foot in your homeland again. What are you waiting for? Can't we get this over with now? It's finished. All of it. I'm finished. And then, in the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I now pronounce the findings of this court. This man before us has admitted to the willful murder of Tobias Gregson. Whee! Wait, should it be the other way? We should be not guilty because von Barrick von Zeeks was found not guilty. Oh, wow, we actually went an hour over. Whoops. End here. If we end it here, this will be a nice cliffhanger, because then whatever happens next will happen. I'm guessing it's just going to end, but it'd be kind of funny if it just sat like... it's just like, and you should be found. And then it fades to black and it just goes to be continued. But, yeah, I can see us saving here. Because we have gone over time much more than I wanted to. How much is there left, by the way? Because if there's enough left for us to leave it for next time, for next stream, then I can definitely end it here. If it's just like, oh, there's just 10 minutes and then there's the next case or whatever. Because I wouldn't want the next stream to just be like 10 minutes or like 30 minutes long. I really wish YouTube chat was like up, like quicker. Twitch is like you've instant communication with the people on Twitch. YouTube, there's like a 15-second delay. About 3 to 4 hours. Okay, so definitely plenty of time. So yeah, we shall end it there on this cliffhanger, where we will find out what happens next on Thursday. Sorry for the abrupt end, but, you know, this case is being one of those weird ones where it's like they've got long episodes, because we split it up last time as well because it was long. So doing it again, I don't see an issue with that with this case. So, yeah, we shall pick this up on Thursday, where we will be delving further into the case and hopefully finding out the truth, maybe more. But I will be back tomorrow with more Death Stranding, which we're getting into. We defeated like the first act. We're now in like the second act, I guess you would call it. So here's seeing what happens in that. But for now, thank you all for joining today. I hope everyone enjoyed. I'm having fun with this. It's going to be sad when this ends, but I'm enjoying our time, and I'm enjoying that everyone's enjoying me play this and likes watching and everything. I appreciate all of you for being here. As usual, if you haven't already, be sure to like, follow, subscribe, comment, whatever else. And if you want to help support me directly, thanks to Patreon and tips. If you do become a patron, you get your name added to the patron list here, like I do with Hiro Kuni, the Soulmaster 37, and Raffachon 2000. I thank you for the continued support. I greatly appreciate you all. And we go out, find out the true killer, and start to delve into the true secrets of this world. But every little bit helps. It's a great appreciated as well. But yeah, until next time, y'all take care. Have a nice rest of the day. And I'll see you either tomorrow or Thursday. Until then, have a good rest of the day, guys. Bye, everyone. See ya. Bye, Raffachon. Bye, Baloroth. Bye, Matt, if you're still here. Ciao.